G'day, guys. This is Jay here from Journey of a Whitefeather. Kangaroos, koalas, and Steve Irwin impersonations when I went overseas. Now, I've got one of my very good friends. It's one of those things in life, ladies and gentlemen, that you know when you are connected in a tribe. You've also got, you know, when you tribe it, you know, when you meet someone, you sort of go, we've known each other before, and you just pick up from where you left off, even if you haven't spoken a word. This is my great friend, Bryan Wiseman, actor, voiceover artist, former actor of Home and Away, and mate, and genuine great bloke, Aussie bloke. And we've had some conversations, Bryan, and mate, we could talk forever. I mean, thank you so much for coming on and chat with Jay, my friend.
Jay, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. I'm really honoured to be here. I really thank you for asking me on. Yeah,
Oh no,
absolutely.
mate, and as I said yesterday, we had a pre-chat yesterday, and as I said to you, we talked about tribe, and it's just like you and me have been mates for decades. It's just that flow, isn't it, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that crazy? Because like we were talking like, and it didn't feel like we had never spoken. It just felt like that we were just, as you said in your intro, like we were catching up, where we left off. And it's amazing how you can just really connect with people like that. And you can't do that with a lot of people. But, I guess I've found my tribe, you know.
Exactly. Just want to give a big shout out to Johnny Hoodlaw, who started our group, and obviously Justice Matters, very close friend of both of ours, mate.
Absolutely.
As I said, we're attracting some fantastic people, and we'll
We
talk a
are.
bit about that later about our passions, which we could have talked for hours this day, couldn't we, my friend? So
Oh, we could absolutely. And big shout out to Johnny and to John as well. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely, yeah, they're wonderful people, and I'm very honoured to have all these people in my life. And we want to talk about first, Bryan. We're just going to go give a little bit of a background. I mean, home and away for yourself, and you obviously went to America. I think it was the Dub Boy. I think it was the Dub Boy. Was it called the ad that you sent to me? I watched that one.
Yeah. Now, so
I'll let you go.
basically, if we go back to
And there it went.
had to happen, didn't it? Sorry.
No,
Anything's likely to happen here. The
that's
the
no
dog
worries,
just
mate.
knocked the camera off the stand. So
That's okay,
sorry.
mate. No
So
problem.
getting back, that was nice little nice little intro there. So yeah, it all began when I was pulled out by forceps, and when I say pulled out by forceps, you remember that song, "Welcome to the World, There's No Turning Back."
Yeah, I'll
There
do
was
that
some
one. Yeah.
freedom coming into the world, and
Yep.
I sort of like wanted to turn back. That was, it was absolutely impossible. So I came into the life, screaming, and I've never stopped really. I've come in being noisy and continued ever since. So yeah, I became an actor when I was 10, and
How'd you get in?
that
How'd you get in
was
that?
that
How'd you
was
get in that, Brian?
something I always wanted to do.
Yeah,
When I
how'd you get
Oh,
into it?
sorry,
That's all right.
sorry,
Sorry.
sorry,
Yeah,
Jay,
I've got a delay, so I do apologise if I do jump in.
sorry.
You're okay?
Hang on, mate. Sorry.
No stress. This is pre-taped, so we can edit anything
Okay,
you want
great,
out.
great. Sorry about that.
No, don't
Um,
stress, man. No worries. We've got plenty of time, mate. You get yourself
right.
sorted.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what I
Sorry.
wanted
Yep.
to, okay, so we'll go three,
Yeah.
two,
So two.
one.
Great.
And I just wanted to ask you, my friend, with regard
Yes.
to acting, did you wanted to do it when you were a kid? Did your parents encourage you, or did you look out for it, or what was the process? Because a lot of people out there have child stars. They want to be child
Yeah.
stars.
Yeah. It was really funny because I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. From the time I could remember, I always wanted to be just acting, and I was around the house and everything. So when I started school, I went to school with a kid, and she was in commercials. And I kept asking her, how did you get on? How did you do it? How did you do it? And she told me she had an agent and blah, blah, blah. And
Yep.
so I was always forever at my mum. And my mum was the one I pushed. And, you often hear about, stage parents, stage mothers, etc. It was in the actual reverse with me. I
All
was
right.
pushing my mum. And I
Well,
kept, saying to my mum, I want to do this. I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. And so she was ringing up like Channel 7 saying, how does my son become an actor? And they went, oh,
wow.
he needs to get an agent. And it was quite ironic because she was calling Channel 7, And so when I got to the age of 10, my very first job, by the time I did get an agent, my first job was on Channel 7. And it was a Channel 7 ad, and it was Chuck-a-Lucky 7, the good old 5 and 2. And for people who can remember back to 1980, it was a really big commercial campaign promoting Channel 7.
Yep.
And that was the very first time I'd been on television, and I didn't realize the impact that it would have. And I went and filmed on this particular weekend, and then all of a sudden, 3 months later, this commercial's on air, and I'm known as Little Bugsy, and it completely changed my life. And we would go out in public, and people would always come up to me and say, "Hey, you're Little Bugsy," and I took it in my stride. And when I would go to school, all the kids knew, and I got a lot of teasing. I never thought, Jay, that it would have the impact that it did in the way of being teased at school. I thought the kids would react and go, "Hey, this is fantastic," but it had the reverse effect.
Could I butt in on that one? I saw
Yeah.
You watch a lot of. I was a massive fan of Young Talent Time. Obviously, everyone wanted to be on Young Talent Time. You wanted to be
Absolutely.
on Neighbours, right?
There's another one. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you talk about someone like John Newich. We saw it at the start of it. He got pushed up against the walls and called a person who loves the same sex. We'll put it that way. You get where I'm going. So he made it quite clear that, right. And it's really funny, as you said, it's really funny that, you get that. So what was that? What was the mindset going into that, mate? Were you still excited about acting? Were you a bit scared at that time, or what was going through your head?
Okay, so without putting a too finer point on it, I had when I did that commercial, just 2 months before, I'd been assaulted as a kid by what would you call him, a monster, and so it was something that I was very, very affected by. And nobody else knew. I mean, no kids knew. My parents knew what had happened to me. But I went in there in the reverse. I didn't get upset about being teased. In fact, I used it and said, look, I am somebody, and I know I'm different, and I embraced it. And the more I was teased, the more I wanted to continue on with it. And, funnily enough, a teacher came to me and said, just because you're on television, it doesn't mean to say you're going to be treated any differently. And I said to this teacher, I don't want to be treated any differently. I want to be treated like every other kid in the school. And it's funny he was saying that, saying you're not going to be treated differently, but he was talking about, me being on television. So it was quite strange, but, throughout my whole school childhood, it was very difficult. But I spent more time away from school than I did at school, because after that original commercial, I continued to keep going. I was doing job after job after job. And in one particular year, I was away for just over 80 days away from school.
80 days. Wow.
80 days. Absolutely. Wow. And back in those times, you would have to get, I don't know how it is now, as a kid, you would have to get permission from the principal, and it was called a permission to perform in public form. And the principal would have to sign, the authority.
Really?
So
never heard of that one.
Yeah. And so my mum would be forever going to the principal's office and getting these forms signed. And his name was Mr. O'Brien, and he was a great principal. He really supported me. And he said to my mother, he said, look, just bring 24 forms in and I'll just pre-sign them. So
good old Mr. O'Brien. Well done, Mr. O'Brien.
It was great. So on the bottom it's got Edward Vincent O'Brien, and it was fantastic because my mother had these on hand, so I could take time off school at any time that was appropriate. Yeah.
Excellent. So when you went and you progressed yourself, you got 80 days off. I mean, you watch a lot of those stuff. As I said, Young Talent Time was big. We talk about what was the child star Sally Boyden. I was look, that was my crush. All right, I was allowed to crush on. I still can't work out to this day why she didn't respond to me, and it's probably affected me my whole life.
Well, Jay, see there you missed out. See, I was a big fan of Young Talent Time, and in fact, I went onto Young Talent Time to perform.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
absolutely. And so
Okay.
this is after I did the Channel 7 ad,
Yeah.
and it was all very new. I didn't realize that that Young Talent Time was filmed in Melbourne,
Yep.
and then I have to travel from Sydney to Melbourne. And it was good. I don't have it on tape, and I wish I did. And I
Yep.
think a lot of those records have been, those tapes have been destroyed. But went on there, and I was absolutely bowled over, by the other cast, and here I'm like looking at Karen Knowles. Karen Knowles, oh my God, and all the cast and Sally Boyden. Previously to that, I tried to, or in fact, I didn't try, I succeeded. I realized that if you looked up the phone book, you could possibly find names. And I ended up going into this the post office. Back then they had phone books for Sydney, Melbourne,
Yeah, I remember
Perth,
that. Perth,
Brisbane,
all that.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So I went in there and I looked up Boyden in Melbourne, and this without a word of a lie. I found a Boyden, and I think it was Sally's auntie. And I said, "Oh, I'm a friend of hers from school. I'm just trying to ring her." And she gave me Sally's number.
Oh my
And
God.
I rang Sally and I spoke to Sally, and I was so starstruck, I can't begin to tell you.
What did she do?
Oh, she was actually used to it. Sally,
Oh,
she
really?
she took the phone call. She went, "Yeah, it's okay." She said, "I get these phone calls before," and I remember she said she had a phone call from a Louise, and she said, "Yeah, that's okay." Louise found my number through the phone book in the same way, and then as fate would have it, I think it was like 30 years later, I run into this actress at this casting, and she said, "Oh, I know who you are." And I went, "Great." And she said, "Well, can we catch up?" So we did. We caught up and we had lunch. And she said, "I've got this funny story to tell you." She said, "When I lived in Melbourne, my sister and I went through the phone book and we spoke to Sally Boyden." I went, "No way. You're the Louise that spoke to Sally," because Sally
Oh,
told me a
what?
Louise had called her. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Wow,
Amazing.
it's just look, you go through all those times. You see, you watch the best of the young talent time. They talk about when they used to go to rehearsals at night and go till 10 o'clock at night, have tutors and all that, and being in the entertainment game when I fell into professional wrestling, I sort of got a feel for that. That no, obviously being a child star was huge. I mean, we talk about
Yeah.
what you did. Um,
Yeah.
how did you keep grounded? I mean, what your mother was obviously your backbone there. She must have been a wonderful lady. I'm sorry if
Yeah.
she's still
Yeah.
here. I'm not sure, but she must have been a
Yeah.
wonderful lady to do that for you.
She was. She's passed now. She passed
Oh,
in 2008. But you know what? She was my biggest supporter, and to remain grounded, she would just say, "Look, you're normal. You just do a job." And she said, "It just so happens to be that you're working early in life." And indeed, I was. And I was always very, very always grounded, and I think that was encouraged by especially my father, because I had no choice but to be grounded with my father, because my father was very strict.
yeah.
And in fact, my mother was all for me going on television and acting, and she was always, helping me fill my dreams. But my father wasn't, and so my
Oh,
father would
wow.
complain. So there was that. There was a sort of like push me, pull me going on. But yeah, my father always said, you're normal, you're just like every other kid, and you're no better. And so I was always grounded, always. Yeah, I was never above my station.
Well, you can tell that by now, and obviously the chats we've had, which we'll go into later
Yeah,
about where we're
yeah,
at, where we both are at this present time, and then the
absolutely.
awareness that we've had, the growth and awareness, and the spiritual awareness, I want to put it that way, that we've had through the situation that we've gone through is huge. So you went from,
Absolutely.
so just to get a background from there, we'll go from there that you've met the girl that I was supposed to run away with. Um, So, as I said, it shattered my life. Anyway, but so you went on from there, and obviously you had that push and pull, but you ended up on Home and Away.
Yeah, I did.
80,
And
was
so
it 2003?
uh yeah,
Correct.
I did my first episode in Home and Away in 1998, and I was only ever meant to do one episode. So I went in playing Dr. Wilson,
Yep.
and it was just for one scene, one episode only. Did that, and then I was invited back again and again and again. So it ended up, being like this. I became a semi-regular in the show, and it continued on until 2003. And it probably would have continued on a little bit further. However, I was very good friends with a guy called Tony Warren. Now, Tony Warren, for people that don't know who he is, and most people wouldn't have heard of him, but you'll probably know who I'm talking about when I tell you that he created the world's longest running soap opera in the entire world called Coronation Street, which comes out of England.
Well, guess what? Well,
And
you'd be loving to see my mate, Mr. Cortez Medford. Big shout out to you, the Seaman. I mentioned
yes,
Coronation Street, and he goes, "How do you know Coronation Street?" I go, "It's Home and Away of bloody England." There you go. So
absolutely. So I was talking to Tony, and Tony was very old fashioned, and Tony's no longer with us anymore. But Tony and I would write to one another, and he would insist on writing letters with a typewriter, and I would get like
back
a
in the
letter
day.
from England back in the day. Absolutely. And so I think we did have emails back then as well. However, he was so strict that he would not make a phone call because he didn't want to, be charged for phone calls. He would send this letter, and this letter with the Queen stamp would arrive on it. And he said, "Now I've got a suggestion for you. You're rolling Home and Away." He said, "If Dr. Wilson, was so experienced and such a wonderful doctor, which obviously he is. He's done brain surgery. He's been a psychologist. He's got his own surgery. He's got his own practice. He's the registrar at the hospital. He can do anything." He said, "What the F is he being? What the F is Dr. Wilson doing in Summer Bay? He'd be off in America making an absolute fortune." So I thought about this, and I met with the script producer at the time was Ray Harding and the producer Russell Webb, and they came down to the floor one day when we were filming, and I was having a chat with them. I said, "Oh, it's funny. I got this letter from Tony Warren, and Tony said that if Dr. Wilson was so experienced, he should be off in America doing something else and making a fortune." It turned out that I was written out of the show, and they announced that Dr. Wilson had gone over to America.
Oh my god! Well, I mean, Home and Away is pretty much we call it the Sydney, but the beachside neighbours. Let's be honest.
It
I mean,
is always summer in Summer Bay.
oh, it's
And
always. I mean, you go, bloody street, mate. Look at the state of the crows. Oh, wow, chill it.
that's right.
You know?
That's right. And you don't realise the impact that a show like that has. I mean, I've done other shows, of course, but doing Home and Away and going to somewhere like England, and I would go to England quite a lot, and they treat you differently over there. In fact, they come up and they talk to you. And I remember I was on the tube one day in London, and I was going from Holborn, which is Covent Garden, into Knightsbridge to go to Harrods. And I had this person follow me, and he was like intensely looking at me. He followed me all around Harrods, and I got back onto the tube and I went back to my hotel, and he was still following me. And then he called out to me and said, "Hey, Dr. Wilson, what you doing?" And I went, "Oh, so that's why you were following me." And
Oh, wow.
it was it was a bit creepy, but that's what happens. They embrace their soap so much over there, and so many people think that watching soaps they're real. And so many people think you are that character.
Oh, really? Wow.
I'll give you a perfect example. I was in a shopping centre, and this old dear came up to me and she said, "Oh, excuse me, you're the doctor in Home and Away, aren't you? I know who you are. And I went, oh, yeah. And she went, look, I've got this bit of a problem, and I'm wondering if you could help me with it. Oh, I said, I've got this arthritis. Look at the arthritis in my hands and in my knuckles. And darling, I don't know. I've been to doctors, I've been to herbalists, I've been to everybody, and they can't fix it. But I know that you can, because you do it all. You know everything. You're the best doctor in the whole world.
Oh my God.
And she believed it. And I mean, how do you relate to that? How do you react to that? So I calmly told her that, first of all, she needed some pain relief, and that I basically suggested that she go off to a doctor, and that's all I could do.
It would have been funny, but going through that with regards to, you being noticed, because it was huge. Like, the Neighbours and Home and Away are massive. I mean, I'm a massive TV retro fan. Love a bit of Countdown. Yeah. I mean, I've just joined the Pat Benatar tribute show.
Oh, Pat Benatar. Oh,
big
man.
plug. Australian Pat Benatar show. Well, not bad.
That's brilliant.
We'll see you in Sydney in August, maybe.
Oh, great. Maybe? No, let's make that a definite.
Let's make that a definite, eh? But
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be up there soon. But I mean, as a former, I guess, child star, and going to what was the transfer from what you're doing? What was you had your last gig with Dr. Wilson? Where did you go from there? So you just give us a rundown.
So from there, so if I just go back a little bit, just to put you in the picture. So you're going from being a child star on television all the time, and then I got to the age of 15, and of course, being the age of 15, you're starting to go through puberty, etc. And I had buck teeth, I had big ears, my whole look was changing. And suddenly I didn't have the buck teeth because I had braces, and then I had my ears pinned back because they were quite big. So I changed. So I went back. I went to my agent for a meeting, and she went, "You've changed." She said, "You're no longer the little boy anymore. You're now a teenager, and you have to start again." And I didn't really quite. I really couldn't absorb that. Couldn't comprehend it. And but she was right, because I wasn't that little kid with the big ears and the buck teeth anymore. I was somebody else. And so basically I did have to start again. And she said, "You'll only ever be doing bit parts from here on in." And I said, no, that's not right. And I still had that determination. But she did sort of like, dampen my put a dampener on my parade. So I gave it up for a couple of years, and then I just wanted to get back into it. So I ended up going to drama school, and I did drama school for 3 years, and then bounced right back into it. And and then, my first job after bouncing back into it was in 1988, in a miniseries called Living with the Law on the ABC, who was to one day be Russell Crowe. I worked with Russell Crowe before he became Russell Crowe. So
he was in Secret Valley. I think it was Secret Valley he was in. I remember back in the. But that shows my bloody age, mate. There you go.
Well, absolutely. So and so working with somebody like Russell, it was quite an experience, because he wasn't known then, but he was so focused. And he knew exactly what he wanted to do. And, doing this series with him, we spent a lot of time together. And I said to him, you're so serious. And I said, it sort of like seems like you're up yourself, you're arrogant. But he wasn't arrogant. He just knew where he was going. And he said, I'm going to be going to America. I'm going to be a huge star in America. And, well, hey, the rest, they say, is history. So, getting back to after Home and Away, I ended up going into a show called, and these ones just happened to not succeed. They were all axed. I went into a series called Above the Law. And
I've heard that one. This is sad. I know all these.
All right.
I see where I was going in life.
If you blinked, you missed Above the Law. So I did that. And I went into another one called Crash Palace. And it was
I know
originally...
that one too.
You know that one too? Well, when I went into when I went into Crash Palace, that was only it was called Backpackers, and they changed the name after after we filmed it all. So I did that. Then I went to America.
Yep.
Did a few bits and pieces in America, and discovered that I could do voices really well. So here I find myself in America, and being asked to do a voiceover. Voiceover is fine. I just had to do it in an American accent, and people didn't know any different, right? And then they said, "Oh, the lady that we've got coming in to do the commercial for, which was a women's feminine product, she hasn't come in. Can you do a voice of a girl, a sexy blonde?" And I went, "I don't know, and really want to impress these guys." And I wanted the work. So I said, "Oh, hang on, let me think about it." So I closed my eyes. I thought about this really sexy Pamela Anderson type. And
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
Suddenly this voice came out and I started talking like that. And
I got the job.
Wow.
And so the next thing, they go, "Oh my God, that's fabulous." And so I did the voiceover. I got paid really well for it. And then I came back to Australia.
Yeah.
And I continued to do like a lot of commercials. And then what was it? I did Pack to the Rafters, and then went back to America. And I did a TV series over there called America's Court with Judge Ross. And my voices sort of like helped me out. I turned up at the audition. I was not planning on auditioning. My friend AJ Rochester, you know of her, she hosted The Biggest Loser.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So AJ was living in the States, and I knew AJ, so she asked me to go and go over and see her. So I went and stayed with her, and she went, "I've got the perfect job for you." And she said, "Tomorrow we're going down to the studios, and you're going to audition for America's Court with Judge Ross," which is sort of like Judge Judy, only it's different. You've got to perform like you're a real litigant. The cases in Judge Judy are real. However, in Judge Ross, they're all actors, but you've got to perform, really well to make it, look like it's a real case. So I go in there, and there's like literally hundreds of people in this studio, and they went through the crowd, and it was an audition process I've never ever seen before. They said, "Okay, on this side, you own what is it? Is it a dry cleaning shop? You're the manager of a dry cleaning shop. On this side, you're the customer. And if I point at you, you've got to interact with the manager and the customer." So, and then when she pointed at me, I said, as the customer, I said, she has not, she's not given me a refund, and she has not done a proper job on my shirt. And this woman stopped. She went, "That was really good. You did an Aussie accent." And I went, "Oh, yeah, I just thought I might do it, just as a, just to add a little bit of color to it."
Wow.
And I'm getting my American accent mixed up now, but and she said, "Can we do that again?" Anyway, long and the short of it, they did this cull. So they were telling people, "Okay, everybody in section C, you're fine to go home. Everybody in section C, you stay." So I ended up staying, and to cut a long story short, I got the role of the manager of the dry cleaning shop, and I did it in an Australian accent. And to this day, they thought I was an American putting on an Aussie accent.
Wow. It's funny, when I went to America last year,
yeah,
I did about 100 Steve Irwin impersonations, because as soon as I walked in there, and this is literally, I've been on a plane, I've been up for God knows how long, going through customs, passport cert. Yeah, mate, no worries. Here you go. Thanks very much. We did all the the usual. Young,
Why are you here? How long are you here for?
yeah,
When are
all
you
that.
going
And
home?
then, but I said, yep, this is what it. Okay. Oh, so you're from Australia? I go, yeah, mate. Yeah, Steve Irwin. He goes, love your accent. We love Aussies. I go, thanks very much. I'm looking forward to going. Thank you very much. Love Australia, right? So anyway, kept going, and then all the way through America and Canada, I whipped out Steve Irwin impersonations. Now it's really funny that when I went to Dallas, I walked into the shops and these Mexicans were talking to me, and they thought I was Mexican right straight. I thought I was Puerto Rican until I opened my mouth. Out, oh, Steve Irwin, Steve Irwin, Steve Irwin, and I go, yeah, mate, crocodiles, kangaroos, and koalas, mate. So anyway, so I go, and then I go to Canada and there's bears, and I go, oh, the bears, mate, they're gonna come and get you. And these guys go, do not do Steve Irwin impersonations. These bears are going to attack you. But anyway, and then what do? I go up to the Rocky Mountains. There's a deer, lovely deer sitting down. I'm going, look at this beautiful deer, mate. Then the tour guy goes, okay, mate, I don't think. He goes, hey Steve, you better get in the car. This guy's going to ram you. I go, rightio. Doing the good old Steve Irwin impersonation. Can't wait to meet a grizzly though. Let's go from there. We've got a couple of minutes left on this first one, my friend.
Oh my God, that was fast. Yeah.
Oh, we're going again. Don't you worry. We've got part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5. Don't you worry about that. What I wanted to quickly ask you to finish off with.
Yeah.
I watched now. Young Talentine was an interesting point where it was that changeover when you got out of the acting and then you leave the show and you said you sort of lost your way a little bit, and then not really lost your way, but you sort of go, where am I? Yeah. Young Talentine was the same thing. That a lot of them said, and it wasn't Joe Peroni because he went over to France and made $1 million.
He did, yeah.
A couple of them over there, Greg Point and all those other ones said when we left, we tried to get Lavina Navoa. That's a classic. She went and said, I work for Young Talent. Apparently, they just blew them off. Agents would blow them off as such. And they say no. He said no. I don't want anything to do that. He goes, no. It's, we don't want anything to go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the old saying with Young Talentine people, and I've spoken to met a lot of Young Talentine people since those days, and they said after we came off Young Talentine, we couldn't get arrested, we couldn't get an agent, and a lot of them just went into oblivion because they just could not get the work. And I think one of the big examples of that is Karen Knowles. Karen was very big. And she did release some really good music afterwards. And I know that, she tried, but, I don't know where she is now. She's still around.
She's a lawyer, I think. She was a QC or something, as far as I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very, very smart lady. Yeah, very smart.
Very, very smart. And, and I think it was very, very hard for, what's her name? Deborah Byrne, who was known better in those days as Debbie Byrne.
Yep.
Deborah Byrne, yeah. And she made the transition. She was in Home and Away, actually.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it has affected a lot of them, and, you're just on this pedestal and, you're in TV Week and then, and as my mother always said to me, she said, never take it for granted. You can be a rooster one day and a feather duster the next.
It's an amazing thing, Brian. It really is. I see a lot when I do my charity work with the Good Friday Appeal. Done that for about 13 to 14 years, and you see the plethora of actors coming through. The home and away actors. It's sort of like just oh, it's a new one. You wonder where they go afterwards. I mean, it's more like a stepping stone for over. So I'm not in the industry, I don't see it, but I've seen a lot of the actors coming through. And look, I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch it for years, and not that I watch it now to see it on TV, but. And when we do go there and we sort of run into them and you go, hang on, you're not sure if you don't really watch it. It's just like this process line in some ways, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And look, the streets are littered with former soap stars from all sorts of soaps. They come in, they think, and they've got no mentors a lot of the time. Okay. So they just think that, this is just going to continue on. I'm a big star. I'm on the cover of TV Week. I'm, doing all this wonderful work, and the teens, they're screaming for me. They go to shopping centres, they get screamed at. They go overseas and do pantomimes, and it's all good. But then suddenly, they're no longer there, and they go, "What happened?" and a lot of them are, on the dole, and never to be seen of again. And one of the sad parts about that is that I know a lot of actors who have unalived themselves because they were on such a high, and then suddenly they found nothing, that they were just nothing. Well, in their minds, they weren't.
We're going to go on to the next part, and I want to talk about when I went to LA, and I want to get your opinion on the 3 things that hurt people the most. I'll reveal that in part 2.
Okay.
This has been fantastic, mate. As I said, it's 2 mates having a chat after 10 years.
Absolutely.
This is bloody fantastic,
so good,
mate. So this is what it's all about on Chat with Jay. Remove the mask, write the story. Thank you so much, Bryan. We'll see you in part 2.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.